Well, welcome, and my name is Tim McMahon. I'm the Family Educator Kinship Service Coordinator with the Family Support Center of Berry County. And I'd like to welcome you to the Family Workshop Series. Tonight's series presentation is Literacy and Your Family. And with us tonight we have two presenters. And Paige Brandley is the youth librarian at the Hastings Library and has been since 2018. She's been working in libraries since 2015. She has a bachelor's in social work from Western Michigan University and a master's in library information science from Wayne State University. And she has lived in Berry County since 2014. Also with us is Leah Rusink. And Leah is an early literacy coach and with the Berry Intermediate School District. She's been serving Berry County as a pre-K through third grade teacher. She's also taught kindergarten and preschool for 7 years and served as a tutor for grades K through 5. Also, Leah teaches part-time at Western Michigan University in the College of Education in their literacy curriculum. So thank you both for coming. Thanks to you folks for coming, and enjoy your evening.
Thanks, Tim. Here's copies of our slides for you.
Okay.
And I guess even before we get started with that, we plan on emailing that because there's some videos. So if you want to check them out later, you can have a copy.
Well, that's good because we don't have email.
Oh.
We don't go on the internet.
Okay. Well, you can come to the library and I can show you. Don't worry. All right. So this first slide is kind of exactly what Tim just said. So on page, it's Leah. There's our emails, if you so desire. So I'm just going to get started a little bit with what we're talking about tonight. First, I'm going to cover Every Child Ready to Read. So this is kind of what I do with the little guys from birth through 3 years old. And then Leah's going to cover kind of the roadmap to getting ready to read and being successful in reading at the elementary school level. And then we're covering, maybe they know how to read, but how do we get them to keep reading? So reluctant readers, and then just some real world reasons and ways to get them reading that's other than just a book or school assignments. And then at the end I've got to plug my services at the public library. How old are the kiddos that you guys are?
Right now, they're 9, 11, and 12.
Okay.
Okay, good to know.
Yes, because that way we won't, cater this kind of to you guys. So our role as loving grown-ups. So, the first 3 years of a child's development, as I'm sure you've heard, are very important, especially with developing the early literacy skills. So like that's shown to have, if you're reading with your child, they have more success in school, higher graduation rates, a better job quality, higher wages earned, and most importantly, I think, like better lasting relationships with the people around them. So really, it's our job to create that foundation from birth until they go to school and onward, to not only have a love of reading, but just to even just have it something that's normal and around the house and that you do all the time. There's kind of a disdain for it sometimes, and so keeping that positive attitude. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I do with my story times and kind of the state curriculum that's been developed, and using 5 different ways to incorporate literacy into the everyday things that we do, so it's more than just sitting and reading with them. So that's called Every Child Ready to Read, which is talk, sing, read, write, play. So these are all things that you can do for free. A lot of the stuff is just things that you'd be doing around the home. And I'm just going to go through each of the bullet points and kind of explain what they mean. So talk helps children learn language. That's what they hear, and as you know, with the little guys, they just absorb everything that they're hearing. So when they hear spoken word, whether it's the two of you conversing or you're talking to a child, that helps them kind of decode what certain words mean, and understanding the cadence of conversation and the kind of the back and forth that goes there. And it helps them understand that talking is how you communicate and how you put ideas together. Just like when you see the guys that are like getting ready to talk and they just kind of babble, to each other, so they're repeating those patterns, so that's part of their language development. A lot of times when I talk to new moms, I tell them to talk to your child, even if it doesn't make sense, and you feel kind of kooky in your kitchen talking to them, they're absorbing all of that, and even if it's just saying what you're doing or just talking nonsense to them, it's just really important to be hearing those words and those letters and sounds. So singing is one that I think a lot of people are uncomfortable with. I am not a good singer, and I get to sing in front of kids all the time. So your kids, I promise you, they will not care. But it is really a great way to hear like the sounds within each word. So if you think about how you sing and you take the A sound and kind of pull it out. So I would always say, like, make up songs again about what you're doing, like changing the diaper, changing the diaper. And even if you feel silly, that's really important. It also develops like the baseline for rhythm, which is a big component in literacy as well. And then also clapping along and developing the rhythm, which you'll see later helps with breaking down the words and syllables. And then of course read. So I'm not going to go too much into this because we all are here we know the importance of reading. But really it's been questioned, but there's been studies that have shown like that if a kid's read to on a regular basis, they're almost millions of words ahead that they've heard in a lifetime by the age of 5 compared to children that aren't read to. I know when I read to my kids, there's so many words that I would never use in everyday language, or they'll see rhyming patterns or repeating words and phrases. And so I think a lot of those things stick more than you realize. So picking out a variety of books, both nonfiction and fiction, which I'll show some examples of later, are important to do. And with the little guys, always encourage people to read in front of their kids, even if, like, my husband doesn't really read books, but he reads his car magazines. So my son sees him reading, or taking board books and putting them in with a toy, so it's the books are associated with fun, not just like, ugh, in the shelf in the corner that we have to read right before bedtime. And even if they're not sitting there reading cover to cover, just playing with it and getting used to opening it and holding it is important. Writing, it seems odd because they're not, writing essays, but doing the little things like coloring or finger plays and these movements help with developing fine motor skills that will come later with literacy. And 0 to 3, even just practicing holding the crayons or the safety scissors to get that stuff going. Counting or doing, like, if you have a bingo marker and they like to mark the little dots on things, are all good ways to practice writing. And then finally, play. That's always a nice one to tell families because it's like, no, that's important too. So obviously it helps develop imagination, and it kind of goes back to talking. What a great way to get your child talking when you're playing kitchen or whatever it is. And it helps them come up with new vocabulary words, whether it's gibberish or real words. Like my son is 5 and he always is coming up with weird names for things when he's playing, but it's like, hey, now you're breaking down these letter sounds because I'm asking you, what did you just say? And he has to repeat it slowly for me. So I think that's always a good reminder that when you're sitting down playing games or playing imaginative things, that's not only is it fun, but it's also developing their literacy skills. All right, for this slide, if you want to just take a moment to read it, this is kind of coming up with what it takes to be ready for school. So I always say you're your child's first teacher. I'm sure you've heard that. So just taking the small moments, kind of listed in here, to tell stories and do those things that will really build up their confidence for when they go to school. And then to just touch on the last one of protect your right to read. I always like to remind families that reading is a great way to segue into difficult topics. So I help a lot of families where they're moving, or there's a divorce, or there's a death in the family, and we pick out books, even chapter books, that you can read together and kind of start talking about that. And it's been shown that reading builds empathy when you're reading about people with different lifestyles who are different than you, and it builds confidence when you see your own story reflected. So one of the sayings from librarians is that books are mirrors and windows. So you can read a book that reflects yourself and your own story, and then you can use a book as a window to look out and explore the world. So, Leah's going to take over.
So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the foundations of literacy and what kids need to be good readers. And then we'll kind of focus on the ages of the kids that you guys care for. But we'll go through starting from the very beginning all the way up through upper elementary. So phonological awareness is kind of that first skill that kids need, which is hearing sounds and words. And then phonics is when we match those sounds to letters, which is getting into reading, which is the meat, right? That's what we want kids to be able to do. And then fluency is reading smoothly and with expression. And then I didn't include this on this slide, but vocabulary, as Paige mentioned, is a huge component of literacy, and if our kids don't know key vocabulary words, they're not going to be able to comprehend that complex text. Especially as they get older, those vocabulary words become kind of a barrier to comprehension. Okay, so starting with phonological awareness, there's kind of an umbrella, it's the umbrella term for lots of different things. So rhyming is under this umbrella, syllables, and then individual phonemes. And they kind of progress in difficulty, so rhyming tends to be an easier skill. And then when we get to the phoneme level, that's individual sounds that kids are able to hear and recognize. So we'll talk a little bit about those different components. So for rhyming, we begin with the easiest rhyming activities, which would be just copying rhyme. So you might say fox, box, and then the child would repeat fox, box, the easiest rhyming activity you could do. And then identifying if a word rhymes or not would be the next skill. So fox, frog, do they rhyme? Yes or no? Right? It's a little bit more difficult. And then generating rhyme would be even a little bit more difficult. So you might ask your child, what are some words that rhyme with log? And then they have to generate as many as they can. So in addition to rhyming, that's not the only phonological awareness skill. Identifying syllables is another one. So for example, the word snowman, you may ask your child, how many syllables does snowman have? You can have them clap out snowman or stomp snowman. You also, if you put your finger on your chin, it will drop for each vowel sound. So snowman, you can try it and you'll notice that your chin drops for each of the vowel sounds. So that's another way if your child is not getting those syllables.
Here we are at the zoo. Let's identify some animals and count how many syllables are in their name. Oh, here is a panda bear. How about starting with the word panda? How many syllables in the word panda?
Panda, panda, panda. 2 chunks. Panda has 2 syllables.
Super! Panda has 2 chunks or 2 syllables.
Oh, look, there's a creepy-looking bat.
How about bat? How many syllables in the word bat?
Bat, bat. Bat is a small word. It is all 1 chunk. It is 1 syllable.
Great job! You got it!
Oh boy, there is an elephant.
So, how many syllables in elephant?
L-E-F-ant. Elephant has 3 syllables.
You got this!
I like the zoo. And zoo has only 1 syllable.
And then under that umbrella of phonological awareness, one of the most difficult and specific phonological awareness skills, has to do with those individual phonemes. And phoneme stands for sound. That's what that means. So for first sound, you can see on the left, you may ask your child, what is the beginning sound or the first sound in cupcake? And they would say, k. What is the beginning sound in frog? And they would say, f. And then progressing in difficulty, you may ask for last sounds. What is the last sound you hear in snowman? And they would say, right? The last sound in fall, ooh. And then the most difficult question to ask would be, what is that middle sound? Sometimes that can be a trickier one to hear that, right? What is the middle sound in hop? And kind of reminding them, is it? Nope, it's that middle sound. Listen carefully, right? What do you hear in the middle? But this video right here just describes how to pronounce each sound in the alphabet. So, for example, B makes the B sound, but many people will say ba, which really is B and U put together. So we want to make sure that we kind of chop off some of those sounds, because when children start putting those sounds together to read words, we want to make sure that they're only using that individual sound. So that is a really short video.
Hi, I'm Nell Duke from the University of Michigan, and I'm here to talk about the pronunciation of sounds commonly associated with our alphabet letters. It's very important as early childhood educators that we are precise when we pronounce a sound or sounds that are associated with specific alphabet letters so that we don't cause confusion for children. So I'm going to model that pronunciation as best I can, and I encourage you to practice with your colleagues as well. So for the letter A, there are typically two sounds that we teach in our work with young children. We teach them to associate the letter A with the A sound, and we teach them to associate the letter A with the A sound. So the A sound and the A sound. For B, we teach them to associate that with the B sound. And as much as possible, you want to clip the vowel that's coming after. So it's B and not B, if that distinction makes sense. Some people think you can clip that vowel sound off completely. You actually can't. You can see that in spectrographs. But as much as possible, you want to keep that pronunciation just on that initial sound that you're creating that we associate with the letter B. For the letter C, there are two sounds that we'll typically teach young children. One is k, 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 and that's a sound you might also associate with the letter K. The other is s, and that's a sound you might associate as well with the letter S. So for C, we teach two sounds. For D, we teach one sound, and that's D. And again, we want to clip that vowel so it's not duh, it's D. Okay. For E, again, we're going to teach two sounds, the E sound and the E sound. The E sound and the E sound. For F, we'll teach F. For F, we'll teach F. For G, we'll teach G. For G, we'll teach G. And again, you want to clip that vowel sound as much as you can. Can't do it entirely, but as much as you can. A second sound that we teach for the letter G is J. J. That's the sound we hear at the beginning of the word giraffe, and also the sound that we associate with the letter J. So we teach two sounds for the letter G, the G sound and the J sound. Again, trying to clip the vowel as much as we can. For H, we teach H. And this is one of those letters that's really tricky for kids because there is no H sound in the letter name H, right? And so it's especially important that we spend as much time as kids need to get that H sound for H over time. For I, we teach two sounds, I and I. I and I. For J, it's J. It's just one sound for J that we typically teach young children, J. For K, it's K. For L, we teach L, L. And make sure that you're not going ol, but L. For M, we teach and this is such a fun one to teach with young kids. A lot of times when we're teaching letter-sound relationships to children in preschool, this is one of the first ones that we like to really emphasize with children. For N, it's n, n. For O, we have two sounds again, the O sound and the aw sound. And I hear this one mispronounced quite often, so it's aw, like in octopus, octopus. So it's a different sound than the sound that you would associate with any of the other vowels. For P, it's p, p. And again, you're going to want to clip that vowel. For Q, this is an interesting one. Q actually represents two sounds next to each other, the k sound and the w sound together. So it's qu, qu. And try to clip that vowel. It's tricky, qu. But that's what we have with Q. With R, it's r, r. For S, it's s. For T, it's t, t. For U, it's two sounds, which is the sound that you might hear at the beginning of, say, umbrella, and then U. And U is, of course, the letter name, so that may be more comfortable to kids. So the and the U. For V, we teach v, v, v. For W, it's w. And again, try to get that out as much as you can. W. For X, again, like Q, there are actually two sounds in here. If you spelled it out, you would write it KS, for example. So it's x, x, x. So that's the sound, or those are the sounds, actually, that you would teach with that letter. For Y, it's y, 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 y. And often yellow is a term or a word that we'll teach to associate with that sound. And then finally Z, and that's going to be z, z. So I hope this has been helpful. Again, you can practice as you're practicing as much as possible. Clip, clip, clip those vowels, and just try to be as accurate and precise as you can be in the pronunciation of these sounds. Remember that it's going to help children a lot if you don't simply work with them on sounds in isolation, but also teach them keywords that go with each of these letters. So you don't just teach, for example, the sound associated with letter Y, but you also teach words that begin with that same sound, so that children are constantly hearing the sound in the context of a word as well as outside the context of a word. So I hope this guide has been helpful, and thank you for the work you do with young children.
Okay, so some ideas to try under that umbrella of phonological awareness. So these are all sound activities. So children are not looking at print for any of these activities. And this is a precursor for reading. It's very important that we build these phonological awareness skills before kids begin reading. So at the grocery store, one example, you might have your child say the sounds of an item that they see in the produce aisle, right? And you say, that's a picture, or that's a beet over there. Let's say the sound's in beet. And they might tap the sound. Beat, right? And that's helping them identify each individual sound. And you can do that with longer words as well. While standing in line, you might have your child touch a part of their body that ends in the t sound. So they may say head. Nope, that ends in d. What's another word? How about feet? That ends in t, right? Make it a game. Setting the table, you might have your child find an item to put on the table that rhymes with food, right? Just make it fun. And then play guessing what's for dinner to work on blending. So that's another phonological awareness skill, is saying each sound in a word and then having the child blend that together. So this is a more difficult word, but ch, I, U, E. Can they produce that word? And we have some table activities over here. So when you guys are finished, if you want to look at some of the cards. There's some picture cards and some letter cards that you can take with you tonight to work on with your kids at home. But some things that you could do with these cards, as we talked about the rhyming activity, you might say, that's a picture of a what? It's a mug. What are some words that rhyme with mug, right? So just using picture cards can make it a little bit easier. Also for beginning, middle, and ending sounds, you might say, what is the beginning sound in bug? What's the middle sound? What's the ending sound, right? So you guys are welcome to explore those when we're finished. Okay, so phonics. We started with phonological awareness, which is all about hearing those sounds. And then phonics is connecting the sounds to the letters. And that's when the fun comes in, right? That's when reading happens, the excitement. And children must learn to recognize letters and then connect them to the sounds. So it's super important that when we're talking about letters, we're connecting them to sounds. That's phonics. All right, thanks. Okay, So some ideas to try. I have lots of grocery store examples tonight. Making a grocery list with your child. So no matter what age your child is, they can help you make a grocery list, and you get a lot of information on what sounds are they hearing and can they connect those to letters. When they write the word milk, can they hear all those sounds and write them? Can they hear the wook, right? Or are they only hearing some of those sounds? So that can give you a lot of information on the sounds they're hearing, your phonological awareness skills too. Looking for letters for younger kids, just looking for letters in print at the grocery store, right? And having them identify the letter, and then going a step further, what sound does that letter make? The Jack Hartman YouTube channel I also listed up here. There's some amazing songs and videos for kids of all ages on that channel, so that's a really great one just to have on hand for phonics skills.
A, B, C, D, E, F.
Hey, do you know your ABCs? Well, do you know all of your ABCs?
Yes, I do. I do.
Okay, let's see. If I point to a letter, will you tell me the name of the letter and the sound of the letter?
That is easy. Oh, yeah. M, and it makes the sound mm. Milk starts with the sound, and it's the letter M.
Really good. Now here's another letter.
That is a letter D, and it makes the D sound.
Wow, now really fast.
R, and it says E, and says eh. B, and it says B.
Wow, great job. You really do know your letters and sounds.
Okay, so when we get into the letters and sounds, we can start putting those letters and sounds together to actually read words. So this is called a CVC word. There's one vowel in the middle, that's why we call it CVC. And for reading or decoding, you might model saying each sound. So for mop, you would say mop. You might also have your child do that. And then also these letter cards, which are at the table in the back, kind of switching out different letters. So you might take the S and switch it with the N and say, now what word do we have, right? Sop, sop. Let's take the O out in the middle and add an A. Now what word do we have? Sap, right? So kind of playing with sounds and playing with the letters. Manipulating those sounds is really, really good practice. And then the other side is spelling, right? Which is just as important, and it's intertwined. So with those cards on the table back there, the picture cards, you can easily do spelling activities and say, what is this a picture of? It's a bug, right? Let's say the sounds in bug. Now write those letters, right? Or write the word bug. So getting them to really listen for each sound and write it. Okay.
Yes.
So I know you guys have the kids that are a little bit older, and so we can focus on this part a little bit more. So phonics in 2nd and 3rd grade. Most kids have learned their letters and sounds by then. They're working on different phonics skills. So this is an example, and we can show this video. Okay. It's an example of compound words, right? So 2 words that we put together to make a different word. So this video will kind of show what you could do with it.
2-syllable words. In 2nd and 3rd grade, you get to learn 2-syllable words. Let's put these syllables together to make 2-syllable words. How about I find the first syllable and you find the second?
Okay. I like making big words.
How about nap? If that's the first syllable, what might be the second syllable?
How about time for nap time?
Good. Can you find another syllable that makes a 2-syllable word with nap?
I got it. Kin for napkin. Napkin is a two-syllable word.
Now here's an easy one. Base. What might the second syllable be for a new word?
Ball. Base plus ball makes the word baseball.
Okay, now I'll put the syllables together, and you can read all the two-syllable words now.
Pancake. Combine. Napkin. Bedtime and baseball. What does combine mean?
I'm so glad you asked because we always want to know the meaning of words. Combine means to put together. In fact, we are combining syllables to make two-syllable words. We are putting the syllables together.
So I loved that video because it also brought in some vocabulary, just talking about the word. What does that mean, right? So there's vocabulary practice, but also those multi-syllable words, recognizing there's two parts to them, and that helps with reading those words as well. What grades? What grades are your kiddos in?
Fourth, fifth, and sixth.
Fourth, fifth, and sixth, yeah, okay. Just contractions, which is another skill for those second and third grade.
Now it's really detective time. Have you ever learned about contractions? Contractions are words that have been combined and then shortened. Contraction means to make smaller, like a balloon, when the air goes out of it. We say that the balloon got smaller or contracted. When a word is a contraction, it has been made smaller and there is an apostrophe to show where the letters are missing. So the apostrophe is a clue for a good detective. Here's a contraction for you to do some detective work on. Can't. Can you figure out what letters are missing?
I sure know what can't means. It means I can't do something. I am not able to do it. Oh yeah, it means I cannot do something. So the missing letters are the N and the O of cannot. So the word got smaller. It contracted from cannot to can't.
Okay, here's another one for you. Good detective. Can you find the two words that can be made into a contraction in this sentence? I do not like spinach.
Ha ha, easy. I don't like spinach. Do not becomes don't, and I have to remember to add the apostrophe, and I really don't like spinach.
So this is another one that I included on the table back there. Just talking about putting those word parts together, so this might be applicable for you guys. The prefix, right, is that small word part at the beginning of the word, and then the suffix is that small word part at the end, and kind of getting kids to play around with the different parts, and again, talk about the meaning with them. So we can watch this video as well. Okay.
Now we're going to change the meaning of words by adding a short word part at the beginning of a word. These word parts are called prefixes, and they change the meaning of a word. Watch this. Here's the word happy. Now, what if I put un at the beginning of the word? Now it's unhappy. What does unhappy mean?
It means you are not happy.
Exactly. Un changes the meaning of a word to the opposite, like from happy to not happy. What happens if you add un to friendly?
You get unfriendly, which means not friendly. It's the opposite.
You are unbelievable. Now here's another, pre. See if you can figure out how the prefix pre changes a word's meaning. If I put pre at the beginning of the word made, I get what?
Pre-made.
Yeah, so if I go to the deli and the sandwiches are pre-made, they're made ahead of time. They're made before I get there. How about view? Can you add the prefix pre?
That's preview, like a preview of a movie. I get to watch some of it before I see the whole thing. I get a preview.
You got it. You got prefixes. Did you know that there are word parts that can be added to the end of words too, that change the meaning?
I sure do. They're called suffixes.
Yes, let's try one. Can you add to the end of the word play? What do you get?
Play turns into playa.
Yep, you like to play baseball and you are a great baseball player.
And I like to read. I am a great reader.
Okay, so sight words are something that in every grade they're focusing on, right? But many people think that the best way to work on sight words is just flashcards. But words are not stored as visual images, so a great way to work on sight words, or any word, any vocabulary word, is something we call tap it, map it, graph it. And this is an example of the sight word said. So for this word you might say, let's say the sounds in said. S-ed. Now let's write those sounds, right? And you can see that sound in the middle is actually A and I. And just having a conversation about that, right? And recognizing it doesn't have an E there. That's the sound you hear, but it's a little bit different. So I put a heart over it to show. Sometimes English is funny, right? And it doesn't follow the rules. There's lots of words that do not follow the sound patterns that we expect them to follow. So let's watch this video. I think this might be helpful. Do you guys work with sight words at all with your kiddos?
I used to.
As teachers, as parents, too often we're trying to teach kids our sight words the wrong way. Have you ever done this? Friend, said, was, she. Say the flashcards. Let's practice those flashcards. Let's practice those. That does not work. Why doesn't it work? Because the reading brain does not store words as visual images. You heard me right. The reading brain does not store words as visual images. So why would we practice them as visual images? It is not going to help our kids read tricky words. It is not going to help our kids spell tricky words. What we need to do is utilize the process of orthographic mapping to teach our sight words. Orthographic mapping is the process we use to store words into our long-term memory. To successfully map a word, a student needs to have knowledge of the pronunciation and meaning of a word, advanced phonemic awareness skills, and letter sound knowledge. Sight words can be phonetically regular, like the word cat, or phonetically irregular, like the word what. What makes a word a sight word is the ability of our brain to read it instantaneously on sight. In fact, our brains process sight words so fast that it can recognize the word cat faster than it can recognize a picture of a cat. That's why we want our kids to store as many words as possible as sight words in their brain. Let me show you one way to help your students orthographically map their words. Let's start with a phonetically regular word like cat. The first thing you're going to do is tap it, map it, and then you're going to graph it. When you tap it, you're going to say each sound in the word. Before you start, make sure your student knows the meaning of the word. They need something to attach all of this new learning to, and that's why vocabulary is so important to the reading process. Your student knows what cat is, they already have the meaning, they're bringing that part into as you're doing the orthographic mapping process. So then you can go ahead and move on to the phonemic part where we're hearing each individual sound. Have them tap each phoneme or each individual sound in the word to hear all the separate phonemes. K, a, t. Then we're going to map it. K, a, t. Finally, we're going to graph it. I call it graph it because the letters that represent the sounds are called graphemes. So let's go ahead and graph the word by finding the correct grapheme for each sound. K. C is the grapheme in cat that makes the k sound. K. A. T. The word is cat. What you're doing in the orthographic mapping process is helping students connect the sound that they hear in the word to the grapheme that they're going to see, read, and write. Now let's try it with an irregular word. It's going to be the same process. We'll just take a little bit more time to pay attention to those irregular sounds. So first we're going to tap it. What? W, t. Then we're going to map it. W, t. Then we're going to graph it. W, WH together are the grapheme that matches that W sound in what? W, t. Then you might ask your student, which sound is tricky or irregular in that word? And they would find the A, because it sounds like a short U, but it's not, it's an A. They might underline it, write it in a different color, circle it, put a heart around it, whatever they like to do to help their memory that that's the tricky sound. They can table write it in the air, trace the letters. All of those multisensory techniques are going to help them with this process.
Okay, so this is what I want to focus on because I know that age range, the 4th, 5th, 6th grade, fluency is a big part of that. So fluency is made up of recognizing words automatically. So we need that phonics piece. We need to be able to decode the word. But it also encompasses reading with smoothness, reading with expression, and phrasing, right? So there's a lot more to fluency than just reading fast, right? That is important to recognize. So this, if you want to go to the next slide, that's just an image to show some different components of fluency. So fluency at home, some things that you can do, as Paige mentioned, reading together is a great way just to model fluency. Just you reading fluently is a great way for your kids to hear what it sounds like, what expression sounds like, and then also acknowledging it and saying, do you notice that I'm reading with expression? And then maybe reading without expression and seeing if they can notice the difference. Reading smoothly and then reading choppy, just to kind of help them recognize the difference between the two. That's important as well. And then I also put up here something that's in your packet. This is just an example of an activity that you could do, and it is an emphasizing words activity. So it's kind of a fun one, kids love it. The different words are bolded to show which words to emphasize in the sentence. So she didn't ask Dad to go to the mall. She didn't ask Dad to go to the mall. She didn't ask Dad to go to the mall, right? So it changes meaning depending on which word you put emphasis on. And that's something that's kind of fun just to acknowledge to kids because they don't think about that often. Okay, so just to sum up a couple other things that you can do at home with literacy, just overarching ideas. The first picture on the left side, recipes. If you are making a recipe and your kids are around, have them read the recipe with you, right? Practice fluent reading of the recipe. Maybe if you're using a utensil, you might say, this is one of my utensils. What does the word utensil mean? And have a conversation about that vocabulary word. So think about different vocab words that you can introduce in the home that might help them reading complex text. A grocery list, I think I mentioned this one before, right? Have them help you write the grocery list, read the grocery list. Maybe they read it as you're taking things off the shelf. And then this third picture, storytelling is actually an amazing way to build literacy at home. So reading books is super important, but there are so many other ways that build literacy, and storytelling is a really important one. So it's telling your own story.
Boys came, we started reading to them right away because they was behind. And we started reading to them. And actually, Josh, he was in kindergarten when his great-grandma passed away. But we read him his favorite book so much that he had it memorized, and he read it to her, and she thought he read it, but he
just knew the story. That's amazing. Yeah, and that's teaching him beginning, middle, and end of the story sequencing, right? And even telling your own stories from your past, from a long time ago. Those stories stick with kids and kind of give them their own map to tell their own stories. Yeah. And And then this last picture, you might have your kids make place setting cards for dinner, right? Just getting them used to using print around the house. So just having environmental print around your house is an amazing way to build literacy, and pointing it out, right?
Okay, back to me. So, really quick, just some information about the library. We're open Monday through Thursday, 9 to 8, and then Fridays until 6. Saturdays, 9 to 3. It's free to anyone in our, like you can come, anyone can come in. Library cards, if you live in Hastings City, Hastings Township, or Rutland Township, we can get you a free card. And then you could also get a Thornapple Kellogg card, Freeport card, or Lake Odessa card. That's good here. I used to live in Hope Township. Delton has a lovely library. Delton's got a cute little library. Any library you go to, we can do interlibrary loans. So if there's a book that any of the libraries in Michigan doesn't have, then we can get it for you. And then we do have non-resident cards if that's something you're interested in. Most libraries in Michigan also have like ebooks and e-audiobooks, which sounds intimidating, but you can have it on your phone. And again, listening to audiobooks in the car, a lot of families will come to get those when they go on like a road trip. And there's some really great like family chapter books that might have you crying too, because those kids' chapter books are emotional. But it's really a great way to be reading together. It's just like storytelling. And you know, sometimes people will say that audiobooks don't count, it's not the same. I always think about the classics, like how did we first get all these original stories? That was just from storytelling. So it's very important. So I wanted to go over, so maybe you've got some kids at home that are reading, but they're not wanting to read anymore. And that's like probably the most frequent thing that I get with parents coming asking me for help. So I want to show some samples of books that I frequently recommend to families that are reluctant readers, and just kind of talk about how to deal with it. So this was not planned, but I always suggest cookbooks. I guess that's our theme for the night is food. But if you think about it, there's a lot of reading in going through a recipe and new vocabulary, and we have a lot of kids ones that have like
and also fractions, because
yes,
and because
yep.
the kids we've baked with, well, I've baked with
Yes.
kids since they came too.
Yeah.
But when the school was shut down,
Yes.
I figured baking was really important, and I would make them find me what I needed
Yes.
instead of me just sitting
That's
out
great.
there.
And it's a great time just to have those extra conversations, and we were talking about, you know, continuing to talk with them, and that's when you can tell stories about who you cooked this with or where this food comes from and all that good stuff. So I always recommend cookbooks for kids that are struggling to read. Or we have lots of these sort of like Fun with Nature. I have like 101 science experiments that again have bits of reading in it, but they're doing a project, and so they don't even realize how much they're reading, and that it's sequencing and beginning to end and all those skills. So some other ones that I always encourage, where's my other one, is when I have a family that comes in and they're like, you know, this is Susie and she's not wanting to read anymore, I usually ignore the parents and then ask the child what are their interests, because so often kind of adults will expect a kid to say, hey, I want to go to the library and get this specific book, and how are they to know? I don't always know what book I want to read. So asking their interests and then going from there. Like a common one I get is like, I like horses. And so we talk about, do they want to read a book about a horse, or do they want to read a book where they learn more about different types of horses or what it's like to work on a farm. So kind of narrowing down those choices. And then as far as ones that they're interested in, like the Lego books, I usually can't keep off the shelf. Lots of visuals, but as you can see, there's a lot of little texts here and there, and probably a lot of vocabulary words that they might not know that they would get in here. Or, I don't know if you guys do Minecraft. I tried to play with my son and I got stuck in a hole, and that's like as far as I can. It's like now I know why these books go out. These guidebooks, like this, I have 2 on the shelf. The other one I didn't bring in because the binding was breaking, because they're that popular. So, you know, as much as like, oh, it's Minecraft, well, there's a lot of text. So what a good way to get them reading and getting better at their game than these little books that I've got them for Roblox and Fortnite and all of the games. Another popular things are, of course, like the weird but true facts. So I try and encourage a lot of nonfiction for that, because they're not as intimidating as a big, thick chapter book where you feel like you have to read front to back. So you can read your weird little facts and tell, like there's a river in Canada that turns red. And it has a nice bold text. So again, a fun way to practice some fluency is emphasizing certain parts of the facts to make it really shocking for your brothers and sisters. Graphic novels are really popular, and I know a lot of parents don't like them because they don't see it as real reading. Here's one that I have that's a maker comic, so it's Grow Your Own Garden, so it has a lot of text, but it's all divided up in pictures, and this is maybe for a kiddo that isn't as much into a story and wants to learn something. So if you're planning this spring, you can go through the comic book together, and because this is a nonfiction book, so going through that whole process. This is just a regular old The Bad Guys. I grabbed this because the feature film is coming out in April. It is not highbrow. I read it to my kid. There's so many like fart jokes in it, but they love it. And so you can see the big text, and this is a good one to read together, even for the younger ages because it is silly. And I like to pair, like, so you've got a kiddo that's into this and this is what they want. And so you can get them this book, but then maybe get something that's a little bit harder. So like these are actual chapter books that you do need to read front to back, but it has pictures and it has like little clues that you can go throughout, and then as you can see it emphasizes different texts. So it's kind of one to help bridge the gap. Those are some of my main recommendations, but I would really say when you're at the library or the bookstore or something, to not be judgmental about what they're reading.
How do you get them away from the computers?
You know, I would talk to them about the computers and then again try some of these books that have to do with the computers. Like what are they interested in?
I mean,
what are they playing
when
with?
we go to the library, that's where they want.
Yes.
Instead of going to the books.
Yes,
they
usually
want those computers.
have them pick out a few books first and then do the computers. So like once you have 4 books, then you can get your time, you can get your gas pass, do that. But yeah, and to not be judgmental, I always remind myself what entertainment I choose, and sometimes it's not always the classics. And then to get them reading as well, if it's for fun, you don't have to finish it. If you don't like the book, that's okay. Like you don't have to write an essay on it, you can just put it, it's from the library, just bring it back to us. Like I check books out and I'm like, oh, I don't like this. And so as an adult, I can do that, and so can kids, just to keep it fun and entertaining.
If they don't lose the book.
If they don't lose it, yes, which we don't have late fees anymore. So if you find it, that's okay. But try not to lose it. I've been guilty of that myself though. And then again, listening to audiobooks. Like I really encourage that. Or pairing the audiobook with the chapter book that you're reading. So listen to it but looking at the words at the same time. It's very helpful. Let's see what else. This is just my, no, this is your fun segue. So again, they're struggling to read, and then maybe some other activities that you could pair with that.
Yeah, so just getting some other ideas. These are writing things, but just always thinking of different activities that can incorporate real experiences, right? So maybe making a sign for a lemonade stand, or making a poster for you guys, maybe, right? Or maybe sending a written letter to grandma or an uncle or an aunt. So just always thinking of giving them an audience, especially for writing. You know, just writing for no reason, kids aren't going to be as engaged in that. And that happens at school as well, right? They really want an audience. They want a purpose to write for. And they love writing for real things.
Well, the youngest two, they're going to functional because they have a real hard time with their fingers.
Fine motor skills.
Their handwriting is, I don't know how their teachers do it. Their handwriting is.
You do not want them writing a grocery list.
Or my prescriptions.
Totally. Well, the more practice, the better. And sometimes those skills haven't been modeled, you know, as much as they need to be. So that's something you can do at home as well, just modeling and practicing just individual letters.
They started out with these special pencils even because they couldn't grip the pencils.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, their fingers don't work the way.
It kind of gets ingrained, that grip, really quick. Yeah.
So that'd be also well, it's kind of on the next slide as well, like finding their interest and then doing more research about it, and even writing, so like Minecraft. It's how you built your castle. So doing more research on that and maybe writing the instructions down as a way where they might not even realize that they're practicing it because it's something they're so interested in.
Yeah, and I think also it's reminding kids that writing has a purpose of being read, right? And so if they're writing something that they want others to read, really focusing on we're practicing our handwriting so that other people can read the awesome writing you've created.
Well, they found on TV the channels to watch that shows them, and they just sit there and watch because people play these games. And it's like,
Yes.
I don't get it.
Yep. And that's another, actually I've talked to families about that with like the unboxing videos of
Yeah.
like, and so even having your child make their own, like if you're going to do so you want to do a video of a game or toy that you like, so like writing the script and going through that whole process of what you would do for it. So if that's what they're interested in, like, sure, I'm not going to use and make a bunch of money on YouTube, but like what would you do or how would you, you know, introduce yourself and turning it into a fun activity. But my kid, I don't get it either.
But yeah, this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. Just going off of what you said, you know, choosing the topic and figuring out what they are interested in, which you guys already know, right? The topics that they're into. And then helping them ask questions. They have all these questions inside, but kind of articulating what is one question that you really want to find out. And then using the library as a resource for that. Well, let's go to the library and find a book on it and find the answer. And then taking it one step further, step 4, what can you create based on what you learned? Maybe it's just a journal, they're keeping track of their progress. Maybe it's, they're creating a lemonade stand, right? And so they have to make the ingredients for the lemonade and they have to make the sign, right? Or maybe it's a poster or a video, right? A YouTube video. So yeah, just thinking about kind of that progression will help open up more literacy opportunities for them.
So just going to kind of talk about some of the stuff that I do at the library as well. So right now it's March's Reading Month. So I don't know if they're if they're registered, and then if they're even doing it through the schools, that counts double, so you can come and get prizes. And then I will have summer reading starting June 1st, and I just track the number of days. So if they read that day, they track and get prizes. And we're back to getting really good prizes again, like Whitecaps tickets and Griffins tickets, which we kind of lost during the pandemic. I don't know if you have any other little ones or if you know of any little ones. I have an Itsy Bitsy Book Club Wednesdays at 10:30 for babies through toddlers, and we do all the early literacy activities. And then starting in May, we'll do preschool story time again. And Lego Club next Monday, so the 3rd Monday of every month. And again, sneaking in reading there, I usually have a little prompt that they have to read. Like last month was on President's Day, so they had to redesign the White House. So they have a little challenge, and then those go on display downstairs to the library. They get to name their things, so they have to write whatever their project is and their own name. We have some gaming groups, so there's chess and mahjong, which actually there's some young, about that age, there's some 3rd and 4th graders that come to learn chess. There's a group that does D&D and board games, and we have 12 hours of gaming this weekend. So if that's what they're into, there's other people that do that. And like some of like the magic and card games that have quite a bit of reading as well. I do science story times with Ellen from Pierce Cedar Creek every few months. And those are more for the older kids as well. We did a lot during the pandemic, and then we do it again once a quarter. And then we have winter reading for adults and summer reading. So lots of ways to earn prizes for your reading. And we count anything that you read as well. So if you listen to an audiobook, if you're reading a magazine or newspaper articles, that all counts to us. It doesn't have to be books, and it doesn't have to be library books that you're reading. So some other services we have a library of things. So we have like metal detectors, yard games like, not technically Yahtzee, but like giant yard Yahtzee and Jenga and things like that. Again, good ways to talk and read together through the instructions. We have laser tag, and most importantly, we have hotspots. So if you do need some internet at home, you can check out a hotspot for a week. And then I want to talk about MEL, which is the Michigan E-Library, which is just a website, mel.org. So they have things all ages. They have lots of stuff for genealogy research. If you need legal documents, you can get those for free. You can actually build a resume for free. A lot of people come to the library and and they've done it all online, and they go to print and it wants to charge them. So Mel has that for free. There's GED, and like if you have licensing tests, there's practice tests. And then most importantly, there's a kids section, so there's games that they can play, but there's also, you can do a quick search about whatever topic they're interested in, and you can have a good source for that. I know this never happens at your home, but say it's the night before a report is due, and you need to search it really quick. That's a good place to go, where you can find whatever information about an animal or a time in history, and it's broken down even elementary, middle, and high school, so it varies on how much information is given, and it's a quick way to find what you need for those last minute reports. Yes. So I just have one little bit left for the end for what, I guess, here's our children's section. It sounds like you're familiar, at least with like the computers right here. But my little spiel is always, please come and ask me if you need help finding a book. That's what I do. I would much rather help kids find a book than probably work on whatever else I'm on at my desk. And I'm a good, not just me, but all our staff are good, safe adults for kids to practice talking to strangers and asking strangers they don't know questions. I get a lot of timid kids that are kind of shoved up by their parents.
They're not.
Yes, and I get the ones that will tell me their life stories, which is fine too.
They don't have, we've tried to teach them stranger danger, but they have no,
That's great. I love hearing their questions, and like I said, usually if a parent comes up to me with their kids, I will talk to the kids more than the parent, because their questions are just as important. Like to me, I see that as you're going to be someone that's going to be a lifelong library user, and whatever you're interested in is just as important as whatever any adult is interested in. So more than willing to come and talk.
Get a hotspot from the library. How, do you make up a, what's it called, to be able to use it, password?
No. So what you do is we have an agreement that you sign and you check it out with your library card. The biggest caveat is whatever data usage is just, it is what it is. So if you get it at the beginning of the month, when it resets, you get a bunch. If it's the end of the month, it might not have as much.
We have internet, but
yeah.
The boys, they say they got hacked for Roblox. It was over $1,000.
Oh my goodness.
Oh. So they have computers and tablets, and they even have their games and stuff, but nothing's online anymore.
Yeah.
They get into things that they shouldn't get into, but they said that they didn't do it, but it did happen. And
so that's a good way to get it, even if it's just for you. And we had a teacher at the high school who has internet at her house, but during the pandemic, she does like the AP national testing for math, so she had to grade these tests online, and so she'll get a hotspot just because it's a little bit more reliable.
Well, when we was
We have Berry
homeschooling,
County phone, so.
we had to get a hotspot, and even with the hotspot and our internet, the school wasn't getting what they were sending, and we weren't getting what the school was sending. And that was a nightmare.
Yeah. Access to the internet is such a barrier that it's just all over, especially in rural areas.
Yeah, and then when that pandemic, oh my God, our services were just,
Everything was jammed up, you couldn't get through on that.
they would even take out our TV.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's what, we're like directly connected with MEI, and sometimes if I've got a Zoom meeting and the kids are streaming, like it just, it overloads.
Too much tech.
Yes. Yep. We do have, so I've got a little brochure about Every Child Ready to Read, and then like a literacy scavenger hunt, and a flyer about library programs. Oh, and just another program I forgot to put up there is, if you know anyone that has a child under 5, you can get those 5 literacy components, like different activities, text to your phone. It's only 2 a month, so it's not that many. But just be like, right, and then an activity and fun things to do. So there's that information on the back. And then our table activities.
Yes, the table activities are back there, and there's a packet for you guys to take, which not all of them will apply to 4th and up. But there's a couple activities that you might find useful.
Sometimes just, it don't matter if it's age.
Yeah.
Play it.
Yep.
You know, when, last year when they weren't going to school, and they'd ask me what a word means, I say, look it up in the dictionary.
Yes.
Well, I'll just Google it.
Yep.
What?
So there's a Google search engine for kids. It's called
Oh, yeah.
Kiddle.co, Kiddle.co. So that's a safe Google that you can count on. If
They knew how to do it, because
Yeah.
but
oh
they'd
yeah, they
rather,
know how.
they would rather do the computer instead of looking at a book.
In the actual dictionary, yeah. We'll try Kiddle. Kiddle's a safe
Yeah.
Google because you never know what you're gonna get with Google.
Yes.